Hey, welcome everybody. How you doing? Another episode of exrakTALKS.
Yeah.
This is our podcast where we get to pontificate on all of the beautiful items related to extraction and extraction facilities and extraction operations. And what else we talked about? We talk about
GMP,
business. We talk about GMP
business,
stuff.
ESG. I mean,
yeah, just some
quizzing you.
We got quizzes. We got all the quizzes and that's fit to be tied. So yeah, we got all that stuff, and of course courses, right?
Oh, yeah,
and guides, and we're of course is a course, something like that. Isn't that Mr. Ed or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so we are Extract Lab, and of course we love to educate the masses as much as possible. And of course, the real irony of it is that you guys are actually educating us. Yeah. So you guys, you ask questions, and we're like, I'm not really sure. We get the list of questions in. Oftentimes we've been compiling all the questions that you guys have been asking us over the last maybe 5 or 6 years. There are like 500 or 600.
Oh, yeah.
Individual, unique ones. So we're going to put those into a database. We've given answers to all the questions that we, at least
we've touched on everything.
Yeah, to what we think, for the best of our ability and to what we think, and so we're going to try to put those into a knowledge database.
There we go.
And then we're going to work up our little bot so that our little bot can like serve it up, like you type in something. So we're going to try to get that all working, and it's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah,
so
I'm excited for that.
Kind of like a little knowledge base for you guys. So stump the bot type of thing.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see how that is.
That's still open. I don't think anybody stumped him quite yet, have they?
You know what happens when you stump it? You get the...
Yeah, he'll look like he's
confused.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, so what we're going to do is continue our series here on operational excellence. And we have our moniker, Theory Guides, Data Decides.
Yes.
Like I said, that was borrowed from a term from Professor Koltoff, who said Theory Guides, Experiment Decides.
Remember.
And, whatever. I mean, we're going to be really talking about just the basics in lean, value stream mapping, Kaizen tools. And if you didn't see our podcast that we made, last week, and then we also have some operational podcasts that we do, like operational management.
Yep.
We have a bunch of things in there, and what to do, what not to do, how to really manage your operation. We have some items in there related to the IGW lab.
Yep.
And where to take measurements and all that stuff. There's just an infinite number of topics to talk about.
Yeah, it never
so we're never going away, guys. It's
no shortage.
No shortage of things. We could continue saying nothing for the next 10 minutes, actually. But let's just advance here. We have enjoy our free resources. We want to let you guys know that, of course, we do the podcast. Please sign up for our podcast and also go onto YouTube. If you could subscribe, hit the little button, because James often puts out some more videos, and we're always putting videos out, right?
Yeah,
so trying to get more educational resources out to you guys. We got the product tours. If you guys haven't taken a chance to go through the product tours, you should really do that. Basically what we do is we take the piece of equipment, we put it on the website, and then you hover over all the little spots, and it pulls up a little bubble that says, here's what the feature is, and here's why it's important. And
right. It's pretty slick. You can dissect the machine without bringing any tools or wrenches.
Yeah, you can learn about it, and then when you book a live tour with us, whether it's virtual or otherwise, right? You'll have you can just kind of go through that, and you can see. It'll help you ask questions. It'll help you jog your memory as to what questions you need to ask. So, also on our website, if you haven't taken advantage, we have a live demo tab right at the very top of our website. You can go in there. The bot will book a meeting, and it'll book a meeting with me or one of our sales guys to actually go through our actual demo facility, and we'll show you the equipment and things like that. So
right in real time,
it's
cool.
our number one You know, our number one thing, people love to come in and, you know, see the machine,
ask questions. Hey, what's that little thing back there do?
Right.
You know? Yeah,
right,
people love that kind of stuff. And you're always free to come visit the facility as well. When you're ready to pull the trigger and you see it in action with your own eyes.
Absolutely. So. We put together some things, you know, like a visiting schedule. Finally had to do it, so people would know, okay, where to fly in and where not to. Yeah. So mini courses, guides, and calculators. Okay. So let's get started here. We talked last week about all the lean tools in the lean toolbox. A lot of people are now they're thinking, okay, hey, look, we got our operation up and running. Now, quote unquote, it's a race to the bottom, and we need to be looking at things like soft costs. We need to be looking at things like hard costs. We need to understand what our tech time is. We need to understand what our finished goods strategy is. We need to understand, you know, where our supermarket's going to be put in place. And in addition to that, how we're going to integrate all the information and material flow into a comprehensive system.
Yeah, easy to read process.
Right, an easy to read process. And then, so, you know, what value stream mapping and what Kaizen and other tools, they're not just those tools, but those are the ones that we're talking about specifically here. Those tools will help you really it's basically a process, and it helps you come up with actionable and deliverables.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, deliverables.
Yeah, so how it's going to fit into your particular company or your niche or whatever.
Right. I mean, you got to have a diagram coming out of what you just did, so you can show, hey, this is what the diagram looks like. And so, hey, here's what we're doing now, and here's what we're doing in the future. And by the way, I just saved the company $200,000.
Right.
Or by the way, I just saved the company $500,000. By the way, I just saved the company $2 million.
Doing this?
$1 million. Something like that. Good call.
Good way to find money in a company that you're looking for profits.
Yeah. And the first place to look, obviously, is inventory, right? If you have inventory, that's all just little stacks of money sitting there. So, someone who comes in from an operational excellence consulting point of view, they are going to be looking around for, okay, where's the workflow? Where's the inventory? Because those are really balance sheet levers, right? And which means, what is a balance sheet lever? A balance sheet lever is a lever that you use to balance the sheet. That's awful. No, it's basically a lever. When you use it financially, when you manage your business from an operational standpoint, if you are lowering the amount of cash that you have tied up in your inventory, you're increasing your amount of cash flow. So going like this. So that's what you want to be able to do. So anyway, so the lean principles, we define the value, map the value stream, we create the flow, we establish pull, and we pursue perfection. So those are essentially the items. And what we kind of left off last week, essentially in the Kaizen process, you would typically do timings. Okay. And in other words, you would have a value stream. You would map all the material and all the information flow, and you put that into a map. Okay. And then from that, you would also do timings. You would break it all up into elements.
Much each process takes.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Each process within the process.
Right. Exactly. And then you would actually go there and have the people work and do it.
Yep.
And you're sitting there with a timer, timing it.
Yeah. It has to be done.
A little bit. That's a little bit nerve-wracking.
A little bit, but as if you're doing it right, it shouldn't be a problem. You're just setting the pace.
Yeah, and then you make a distinction, obviously, between machine time and labor, and then total cycle time. Okay, so this is kind of where we left off last week. Let me advance one slide earlier. These are examples of some timings where you have, operator one, this is how much time they have in decarb, this is how much time they have in extraction, this is how much time they have in winterization. And you can see that, and here's your lunch breaks, here's some, non-value added time. This is one shift for 3 different operators, and you can see how they're breaking up their time, in between the different processes so that they're balancing out what they're doing.
Right.
Like so you don't want to have
an appropriate amount of time towards the appropriate amount of process.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people look at that and like, well, how is that actually done in practice? And that's kind of shown right here. It's the standard work for a single operator. Okay. So for example, this guy could be doing, he could fill the extractor. Here's hour 1, hour 2, hour 3, hour 4, all the way up to one hour. Here's the machine time. If you have the extractor guy and all he does is fill the one machine, he's only working for 10 minutes.
Right. Plenty of time to do other
plenty
stuff.
of time to do other stuff. I mean, otherwise he's going to be, we're just sitting there on his phone. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So you can add on some other, there's some labor. If you want to do some decarb labor or you don't want to do decarb, that's fine. I'm not debating that. It's just what are the other processes that he could do during that time to fill it up.
Yeah.
And are they accessible to him so that he can do them in the same amount of time? So you can see here, he's filling the oven at the same time, and then he has all this free time. Filling the oven, he's got all this free time. So you might want to have him do some other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because he's still machine time. You see that? But you can see how the machine time and the actual labor time, the labor is a lot less than the machine time. So you're kind of waiting for the machine time. So you want to make sure that you have other things for people to do. And that's really what this chart is about right here, is to understand, what it is that they're doing,
where they can apply that other time.
Right. Exactly. If someone comes to me and says, hey, I got one guy and, he's only running like 2 machines. Like I heard this recently from one of our customers. Well, no. One guy can actually run 6 machines very, very easily.
Yep.
So there's something
8 or 9, then you're running.
And they're like, oh, well, what's going on here? Why is that the case? Well, it has nothing to do with the operator. It could have something to do with process and procedure. It could have something to do with releasing or line clearing due to quality or whatever. You don't really know,
Yeah,
so the operator may be sitting there for half the time waiting. And then you have lunch and breaks too. You see that right in there? If you don't take into account the lunch and the breaks and you don't have the right timings associated with your equipment, usually if you're just running one piece of equipment, it's like, okay, it's boring. You don't have a lot to do. Okay. But if you're trying to be efficient about it, you don't want to fill it up and then have your machine stop and need more attendance right in the middle, right at the beginning of your lunch break. But I'm on the lunch break. Sorry, can't do it. Okay, so now you just lost a whole hour of productivity.
Exactly.
If you are on break while your machine needed attention, right?
Yep.
Now you are basically you're probably losing another hour.
Yeah.
And then in the afternoon break, you're probably losing another hour. So if you don't time it properly, you're losing 3 hours of productivity easy just by not timing it properly. So it's all common sense.
It's as simple as, I'm going to go on lunch break once I get this machine going. I know I don't have to be here for a half hour, 45 minutes.
I think that some people think that way, but then there's other people who think, okay, it's 10:30 and I'm gone. You know what I mean? I'm outside and then it's 4:20 and I'm gone. So that's it. That's all I'm doing. So, okay. So that's something that you need to make sure that you have the right, you do have the right balance. Timings and the right balance. Okay. Yeah. And that's what this is about.
Like you had brought up non-value added time. How would they categorize non-value added time?
Well, okay. So that's the time that, like here, for example, let's go back here. So this is a value add time. This is a value add time, but this is all non-value added time.
So once they put it in the oven.
Well, yeah, if they're just sitting there
waiting
or whatever,
for the machine to finish,
or doing something else, something, maybe they're doing something that's not adding value.
Well, we might have to have a sit down with this guy. I don't know. So we'll get them straight.
Believe it or not, I mean, if you look at your time that you spend there during the day, I mean, I have non-value added time.
Right.
I walk to the coffee pot at least, least 5 times a day, right? I get the little cup of coffee. That's non-value added time. I bet you I spend at least a half hour going back and forth getting coffee a day. For sure. I'm absolutely positive of it. Of course, I skip lunch, so it's not that big a deal. What else? I don't know. I can think of some other non-value added time, but there's non-value added time that is definitely there. And there's always a certain amount.
Well, I suppose running the restroom or cleaning up a mess.
Yeah.
I mean,
cleaning up a mess, right? Or cleaning up doing things that are not adding to the value stream. Not in the value stream. Right. So if the activity is not in the value stream, it's not value added. It still doesn't mean that you don't have to do it.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like, typing out all the quality documentation. Nobody likes to do that. You got to automate that stuff with IGW, by the way. So, so there you are. So, but you can see here is time remaining here for winterization. So if you wanted to have this guy do some oven work or some terpene trap work and some extractor work, you still have 6 hours there for the guy to do it, do other stuff. So you could deploy him into winterization, or you could put a distillation machine right there, and he could just be running both at the same time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So
depending on the scale.
Yeah, exactly. So, so that's what that is. Okay. So let's go back here to the idea of labor time versus machine time. I think we kind of talked about that. A lot of people really, from a sales standpoint, the total cycle time is important, and the labor time and the machine time, it's all important. It's all very, very important, right? But winterization is one of those things where a lot of people have really kind of, I would say, dishonestly said, hey, it's a very, very long process, 1,400 minutes. It's really not that, because you have labor per cycle of 10 minutes, maybe maximum. Okay. Right. So yeah, you are waiting, but if you use a first in, first out lane, meaning you put one bucket in, if you're doing a small scale, or if you're doing large scale and it's continuous, great. Then the machine time still have to be there, right? So you have one batch you're putting in and taking one batch out. Yep. Okay. You still have some machine time. That machine time really is not impacting your labor. So it's really not fair to say, oh, well, that takes a really super long time. Right. Because no one's sitting there waiting for it to get done.
Exactly.
Right.
You got a guy sitting on the freezer.
Yeah. But you wouldn't believe the number of people that actually believe that. And they're like, it takes 24 hours. I mean, we can't do that, right? So they just go with it. So that's
the process takes 24 hours.
No, yeah, the process. So there's a difference between labor and machine time, right?
Put in some overtime.
Yeah. Wow, this is really going. That'd be something like getting the guy who watches the paint dry. I actually knew a guy who was a chemist who that's what he did. He watched the paint dry.
Really? You work at 3M or?
I think he worked for the state of Minnesota. All those strips of paint, right?
Oh,
yeah. So they would. So he used to brag about that was his job. I'm like, dude, you should never brag about that, because
you probably got paid big bucks.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you go into your prospective employer. So what did you do at that job? Oh, I watched paint dry. That's a real productivity hound there.
Very important.
So anyway, the distinction between machine time and value-added labor time is extremely important. I think this is where we left off last week. And the machines need intermittent attention. Machine will work while the operator can be doing something else. Okay. When someone says winterization takes too long, this is an example. What they're saying is I'm waiting for the machine to finish its job. Okay. But no one's waiting, because you're always doing other things. And if you balance out your labor and you balance out your load, that's what that looks like. So then first in, first out lanes. So that's the idea of first in, first out. And you can put those in between processes that take too long or have a high machine time.
Yep.
And you can balance it out so that there's always a continuous flow.
Definitely.
So you do not need to be sitting there waiting for anything. So this is just an example right here. We have labor per cycle time, machine time here, and then there's one FIFO, and then total cycle time is actually 11. So you got FIFO time, machine time per cycle is 1, your labor is 1, so your total time is 11, because you're taking one out and putting one in. You get what I'm saying? Okay,
easy,
I think we beat that. I think we beat that one to death. Okay, we know about that, but it's just something that I was always scratching my head on that. And like, okay, well, but I can't tell you how many people I talk to that actually believe that,
They just grab whatever's in there.
Yeah. It's just, the labor versus machine time. Yeah. No distinction there. So
yeah, definitely have to quantify that.
Yeah. Standard work for single operator. So, these are the types of things that you would do in a load leveling experiment. And I'm going to actually break open my spreadsheet here in a couple minutes here, and I'll show you what a Kaizen spreadsheet looks like. And and show you what would be entailed in actually conducting a Kaizen. So let me talk about that. So now you go in to calculate your lean manufacturing parameters for crude production, for example. You can, for every part number, typically you have these manufacturing parameters. So you want to talk about them. Okay, what's my capacity? How many kilos per hour for my particular machines and my particular people that I'm using? What's the productivity? 4.2 kilograms per operator per hour. $1 per kilogram, $3.57 per kilogram, given the parameters that are in that model. Yeah. That's the takt time. The takt time, a lot of people, we went over this last week, what the takt time was, but the takt time is how many it's a demand calculation. How in order to meet customer demand, how many kilos do you need to be making in what time interval?
Right.
So in this case, there's a certain demand, and so every 81 minutes you have to create a kilo of that stuff. So, and that's the takt time. You can imagine that's a pretty important figure in a metric, right? If you have standing orders for something, and okay, well, every hour I have to be creating this amount of stuff. Yep. You're just working backward from the demand to how many, and how many hours that you can tell, your capacity. Do I have enough labor to meet the takt time? Do I have enough equipment to meet the takt time? Is there something? But if you don't know what that is, how are you going
to figure it out?
Yeah. Or take an order. You don't want to take an order for something. So
shooting in the dark.
You're kind of shooting in the dark. Yeah. Cycle time. In other words, so you can see that the cycle time and the takt time are pretty much equal, which is really great. So every time the cycle changes, you're actually creating an hour. So that's what you want. You don't want the cycle time to be twice the takt time.
No.
Then you'd have to do something either with labor or materials. So then here's your human time. There's overtime required because it looks like the humans are balancing out perfectly in that whole schema. So this is the type of thing where you would also want to say, okay, well, if I, how much overtime do I need? How many operators do I need? And all that stuff to create enough labor and enough capacity to actually meet the requirements for my product. So, also you can do estimate value-added labor time to process various weights of hemp. A lot of people want to know that, right? So if you have, if I have 400 pounds, or if I have 2,000 pounds, or 3,000 pounds per day, 4,000 pounds per day, how much value-added labor is in that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Once you have all your timings, you are able to see, okay, that's my labor content, right?
Yep.
Here's my labor content. Here's my materials content, and here's how much I'm going to sell it for. Here's my gross margin.
Yep.
And then here's how much I'm going to pay all of the executives and all the salespeople and all the R&D people to do all their work. And then there's my bottom line. And hopefully it's not negative.
So definitely very important.
Very important thing. Yeah, exactly. So, we do some consulting for people also with this, and I'm just going to show you a spreadsheet that we use on this. But typically what we would help you guys do is do some current state and future state value stream mapping, identify the pacemaker process, which is basically at what process do you want to schedule the production.
All right.
So you have point A, point B, point C, point D, right? Usually you want to go up into the process as far as you can, where there's a continuous flow after it. So there's a couple different things, and that's really is the pacemaker process is what we call it. And then we didn't really go over that in detail here, but then we also have finished goods strategy. In other words, typically you have like a supermarket. When you remove something from the supermarket, it creates a ticket. The ticket goes up to the pacemaker process, says start to produce.
Okay.
So again, it's instead of the command and control guy at the top saying, okay, produce all this, and it's all going to go to finished goods. Okay. In this case, we're responding to customer demand instead. Production is then related to customer demand instead of a work order system.
All right.
However, the work order systems will never go away. That's because that's a command and control type of thing that the accountants have to have. That right?
Makes them feel powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, you should cut that out and send that to. Yeah, oh, it makes them feel powerful. Yeah, we're all laughing. It's great. Oh, we love accountants. We love accountants. If it wasn't for them, no one would pay taxes. I mean, we wouldn't have a taxes. We wouldn't get paid. Yeah, they wouldn't. Yeah, so. That's why I say whenever I see the accountants, I say, "Hail accountants," and then I walk past them. Never by name, of course. Yeah. Just hail accountants, Back when Enron was happening, you remember that? Back in the old days.
Oh yeah.
And that was kind of an interesting thing.
Hopping in the time machine.
Yeah, exactly. I remember there was a picture of a bunch of on the front page of the Economist. There was a cartoon of a bunch of accountants in a cage, and they were all gnawing at the steel bars. Okay, that is totally accountant humor. In fact, if you have an accountant friend, that would be a great poster to give them.
Oh, there we go.
If you could get that front page of the Economist, whatever. So, finished goods strategy, pull systems throughout the operation. That's where you're pulling your inventory out, and what a pull system is it's very similar to a supermarket where you would pull something out and it would create a demand then, and then that would go to the purchaser, and the purchaser starts to would then say, hey, to the supplier, hey, send another one. Right?
Yeah.
So it is a system. I think that I've seen it work, but it's always a little bit more complicated than the simplified version of it. Okay, because a lot of times people have constraints within their business. But the point Kaizen opportunities are pretty good, estimate efficiencies, and then you conduct the one-day Kaizen. So a Kaizen typically is a rapid improvement. It takes a couple days to do. And now I'm going to kind of show you an example of a Kaizen spreadsheet. So I'm going to pull that up here. You got to have an output, right? That's the key thing. If you don't have an output, you don't have any way to communicate what you just did. So here's the Kaizen report. This is basically this is what you sign. This is what you fill out to say, hey, here's what we did. What the business is, who the team members are, all that stuff, number of shifts available. Here's the tack time. We had discussed that. You'd fill that in there, who the process owners are, who the champions are. Oftentimes they have value stream champions. Sometimes they have accountants that would, be participating there. So you get get buy-in, and then you describe the area before and after. If you have pictures, you can put them on there. And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to quantify all the savings. So if you're saving space, there's a soft savings associated with that, right?
Yep.
If you're improving inventory turns, there's probably hard savings associated with that. If you're reducing inventory, these are all goals of what the operational excellence will give you.
Okay.
Right. This is what a Kaizen, this is what it does. So it pays.
Yeah.
It pays, right?
Absolutely.
Inventory reduction, and there's costs associated with that. Like for example, sometimes you might rearrange the work cell so that you reduce walking distance to 0. Right. Instead of having a guy walk over to the other side.
For something that's got to come right back over.
Come back
10
over,
feet from him.
back forward. He'll do that all day. If you allow him to do it, he'll do it all day. Who cares? That's my job. Okay.
Right.
But from a standpoint of efficiency and timing, it's probably not good. So, you would also publish lead time. It's very important if you can take your lead time, from say 50 days to like 1 day.
Yeah.
You have done a gorgeous thing. Right. Usually it costs you in finished goods. You put some finished goods inventory in there for a 1 day lead time, but that's essentially what you want. That works with some things that are like widgets. So if you guys are doing, those of you guys who are doing CPGs, that's really awesome. So then you would build to the supermarket, and then you would stop building once the supermarket was full according to your pre-described amount of inventory. And then when it got down to a critical level, then there'd be another signal that says, hey, start to produce.
Yep.
Right. So that way you would overproduce.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Because then you're sitting on a bunch of stuff. You put energy into creating that stuff, and
then that also helps upstream because your batch sizes and everything are really your batch sizes are made for your finished goods that you're going to be sending out, right?
They should be.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, and interestingly enough, you can bring that all the way back to your supplier. You could, for example, say, okay, instead of buying, 700 gallons of MCT oil or whatever you're going to use for your tincture or whatever you're going to use for your tincture.
Yep.
Instead of doing that, you could just say, hey, look, I need every 2 weeks, I need 5 gallons.
Yeah.
Right. It may be a little bit less expensive, but they can put that on a reoccurring.
Yep. And you're keeping all that money that would normally be sitting in inventory in the bank.
So that's why you really have to coordinate between purchasing, operations, accounting, and it's really important so that you're connecting your supply base to your actual demand.
Absolutely.
If you don't do that, I mean, doesn't that make sense? I mean, all we're talking about here is, but a lot of people just don't have they don't have the process to do it. No. And so, but they know that it's pretty obvious. Hey, this would really work. So
I think a lot of people spend time just building their business, not thinking, okay, how do I optimize
get sales? How do we get sales tomorrow? Right.
Exactly.
I mean, that's it. Yeah. So that's okay.
Knowing that, hey, when you do stuff like this, you're actually making your business more efficient. You're keeping, you can dedicate more time to those sales if you're switching your people around correctly.
Exactly. So cycle time would be another thing. So what if you took your cycle time instead of 1 hour down to, half hour or something like that? That could help you. It could help you with labor. It could improve your capacity or whatever. Yeah.
Yep. Which is where it's at.
Maybe less equipment. Okay. On time delivery, quality measurements, manpower, materials reduced, equipment removed, and then the 5S valuation. Does anybody know what 5S is?
It's sort, straighten, shine, standardize, and sustain.
Wow. That's awesome.
All very important.
All right. Yeah.
Operations.
Sustain. Let's talk about sustainability. Okay. No, we shouldn't do that. Okay. another 50 minutes of monologue, and everybody will be like, okay, shut this off. Okay. All right. There's a whole thing with 5S. It's all about straightening and cleaning and making sure that you don't have a lot of excess stuff around, clutter, decluttering, and there's 5S statements or whatever. So people 5S their offices.
Okay.
They throw everything away that they didn't use in the last year, and then they're like, oh shoot, I just threw that away. I need it now.
Yeah.
That always happens to me.
Hoarder tendencies. Yeah.
Also visual controls and then setup. So you can see there's a lot of different metrics that you can go ahead and put in there. And this would be like, okay, here's my report. This is the report. So this is what you actually produce out of a Kaizen. There's some action sheets that you would need in order to talk about the improvements. And then here's your calculators that you have for a takt time calculator. So for example, suppose you had some crude oil that you were making, and every part number has a takt time. So obviously if you have a demand, they say, okay, I needed to make 10,000 tinctures per week, right? Yeah. Well, I would have a takt time associated with the 10,000 tinctures per week, right? And I want to look at my production line for tinctures, and I would want to make sure that it's all been planned out. Okay, yeah. So that's really what this is all about. Okay, so so then basically what you do is you have your annual requirements. You have the number of days. So suppose we have an order for 4,500. That would mean I'd have to have 12 kilograms per day for 350 days, right? And I have 8 hours and one shift. So 8 hours, one shift is 28. So basically every 37 minutes I would have to produce to meet that requirement of 4,500.
Man.
So it's a kind of just a different way of thinking about it, but it's definitely a more operational way to think about it. And if you talk to any of the people that are, out there doing operational excellence, they're going to be asking you, okay, what's your takt time? What's your, what is all that stuff?
I need to know all that stuff. Yeah.
So number of operators needed, there's the cycle time divided by the takt time. Obviously, if you have if your cycle time equals your takt time, then you have a ratio of 1 and you need 1 operator, right? If your cycle time is less than your takt time, you divide by more, you're going to get less, right? So so there's some rules there in terms of number. Just some rules there. You can ask people to work overtime if it's over a certain, level or something along those lines. So that's the cycle time divided by the takt time. That's the number of operators. And then here's where you're really calculating all your productivity. So, how many kilograms per shift, available time, operators involved, all the demand associated with that particular part number again. And it's getting you, okay, here's everything. Now, here's all the capacity, here's the productivity, the dollars per kilo, the takt time, cycle time. These are all very, very important measures, And once you get that, you can also say, okay, well, here's the time waste calculator because I have my value add stuff and my non-value add stuff. So, these would be basically customized and tailored actually to your to your operation, to each process and to each part number essentially. And then here's a, load operator chart. And this is where you do all your different operations here. Now, if you were going to say, okay, I'm going to take my solvent removal process and I'm going to do a Kaizen on my solvent removal process. You would have a whole list of tasks in there. You'd break up the task into work elements. The work elements would be something, okay, I do this first and then I do this and then I do this and then I do this.
Subtasks.
You'd put them all in there like that. And then you'd do timings to see, and you typically do them over 3 operators. You would average that out. And then you would do a load leveling. If you had more than 1 operator, or if you only had 1 operator, you do a load leveling, and you'd understand, what that really took out of that. And then there's the remainder and operator. So there's just some rules related to the number of operators that are remaining. And then you can also do some cell loading analysis. So if you have multiple cells and you want to load and say you want to load up all the cells with labor and you want to understand where everybody fits in that, this is basically the spreadsheet that you fill out for that. And then here's some AutoCalc. What this is basically what you're doing is you're doing an operating working time. Remember when we looked at this? This Gantt chart. Okay, it's very similar to that, and it'd be very, very similar setup for this spreadsheet as well. So this is helping you so you can see where everything is set,
laying everything out, and seeing how long it takes.
Right. So what's nice about that is as you start to update things, and you can the main thing is being able to communicate what you've done in the Kaizen. You do a small multifunctional team that is focused on rapid improvement with the goals of meeting, reduction of inventory, or, you never know what you'll find in there when you actually go increasing efficiency. Yeah. And if you do that cell by cell, work cell by work cell, you will have a leaned out facility essentially. And then you would want to do like a process Kaizen, which this is like a point Kaizen, which it means that, you would do this by work cell. The process Kaizen would be kind of like a value stream mapping thing where you'd map everything out. A little bit of a bigger picture. Yeah. 30,000 foot view type of thing. So what else we got in here? We got the standard worksheet. So, this is where you can kind of, you can do some things with your floor plan. If you have like AutoCAD or something like that, you might want to change around how the cell is actually configured. Make sure that make sure that you have the right FIFO lanes in there. You're going to feed the inventory in from the back side of the bench so that people don't have to stand up and walk around to the other place, fill up the bin, come back, like that stuff. So, that's the stuff that really helps you. And then here's the Kaizen newspaper, which is basically, hey guys, we identified a tremendous amount of action items. Here's what happens. Get into a 2 or 3 long hour meeting, and people have all kinds of ideas how to make things efficient or whatever, right? Yeah. And some of those are good, and some of those are maybe not so the best. But at the same time, they're going to be things that the group says this is an actionable item. We need to do this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What happens in that situation with the vast majority of companies is that they walk out of the meeting and no one's written any of that down and no one takes responsibility for it. And there's no time dimension on it. In other words, you have to get this done by this amount of time and there's no deadline. And so it just goes off into the wind. So why even have the meeting at all? You might as well not even do the meeting. Forget about it. You know what I mean? I was at a meeting yesterday, for example. I was like, okay, 3-hour meeting. And I'm like, who's got the notes for the meeting? And it's like, okay, well, what's the action items? I send the action items to me. If you're not going to do, you just wasted 3 hours. If you're talking about something, doesn't do anything. In fact, it's almost like, don't talk about it at all. Forget about it. Be aware of a problem is worthless.
Yeah.
To actually do something about the problem. Yeah. Well, that's what we do. That's how we roll.
You got to have it on a piece of paper.
They've got to have it on a piece of paper.
Somebody's got to take the charge on it.
Say, hey. So that's great. When James doesn't show up to the meetings, we know who gets all the action items. James. Okay, we'll give that one to James. Okay, we'll give that one to James. We used to use this program called Monday, which was pretty good. I don't know if you guys ever used that one before. We are not advertising. It was tough. It was tough. It was tough.
We have a lot going on though. So it's going to be different for other companies.
Right. The issue, I think the key thing there is just to make sure that you have, like we do multifunctional stuff, right? So that's where you really have to be organized.
Yes.
If you are like at any given day, I'm doing a little bit of engineering. Yeah. I'm doing a little bit of sales. I'm doing some marketing, talking to, investors or whatever. Yeah. And then, trying to make strategic decisions every now and then. Yeah. People will ask me about taxes. What else do I got? I don't know. And then no wonder I drink so much coffee. But we've talked about videos, right? We've talked about what to do on videos. We've talked about socials, So all that stuff. So anyway, it's just it can get if you're not organized. And sometimes you saw my office lately, right? It is really like it looks like a bomb went off in it. And I think I decided, okay, I'm going to become organized in my file structure. Right. So I took everything out of my files and I didn't get time to put it all back in order. It's just sitting there. It's terrible.
It's going to be great though.
But it's going to be great. It's going to be great. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate it. If you're interested in